convicted on the impeachment charges, senators will vote yes or no. The clerk will call the names. The room went completely quiet. There were 100 senators. 67 votes were needed. And for the next 17 minutes, as each senator's name was called, and each one said guilty or not guilty, the numbers became clear. At 4:04 p.m., the clerk told the count to Chief Justice Roberts. Roberts stood up. Everyone in the room held their breath, and he read the result that has never been read in American history. Quote, "On this vote, the yes votes are 68, the no votes are 32. Two-thirds of the senators present having voted guilty, the president is found guilty on all impeachment charges. Under the Constitution of the United States, the president is removed from office starting right now." The Senate room exploded with noise. Some senators stood and clapped. Others just sat there, shocked. And at 4:07 p.m., 3 minutes after Chief Justice Roberts said he was removed, the president posted on social media from the White House, quote, "The Senate vote is fake and means nothing. I do not accept this decision. I am still President of the United States. I will keep doing my job and I will not leave the White House. Subscribe right away, because what I am about to walk you through is not the end of this government crisis. This is the start of the most dangerous part. The Senate has removed the president, but the president will not accept being removed. And for the next hours or days, the United States will have two people both claiming to be president, with no clear way to decide who actually holds that job. Turn on notifications, set them to all, because what happens in the next 24 hours will decide whether American democracy made it through this crisis, or whether we have entered a time of government breakdown, where being removed from office means nothing if the removed president has the power to fight back. Here's what happened during that vote, because the roll call shows which Republicans voted to convict and why the total reached 68. At 3:47 p.m., the clerk started calling names in alphabetical order. Senator Baldwin of Wisconsin, a Democrat, voted guilty. Senator Barrasso of Wyoming, a Republican, voted not guilty. And so it went for 15 minutes. But when the clerk reached McConnell of Kentucky, the room stopped. Mitch McConnell, the Senate Republican leader for 17 years, stood and said clearly, "Guilty on all three charges." The effect was instant. McConnell's vote gave other Republicans the confidence to do the same, and they did. The 17 Republicans who voted guilty are Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, Mitt Romney of Utah, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Susan Collins of Maine, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, Ben Sasse of Nebraska, Richard Burr of North Carolina, Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania, Rob Portman of Ohio, Tom Tillis of North Carolina, Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, Joni Ernst of Iowa, Mike Rones of South Dakota, Todd Young of Indiana, John Thune of South Dakota, Roger Marshall of Kansas, and Cindy Hyde-Smith of Mississippi. The last two, Marshall and Hyde-Smith, were surprises. Neither one had said publicly that they would vote to convict, but both said after the vote that the president's refusal to follow the Supreme Court was a reason to remove him. At 4:04 p.m., when the count was announced, the numbers were clear. 51 Democrats and independents voted guilty. 17 Republicans voted guilty. Total, 68, exactly one more than the 67 required. The president was found guilty on Article 1, ignoring the authority of the Supreme Court, found guilty on Article 2, misusing emergency powers, and found guilty on Article 3, blocking justice. He is the first president in American history to be removed from office through Senate conviction. Hit that like button right now if you understand how big this moment is. The Senate just removed a sitting president. The algorithm decides what breaks through. You decide whether this analysis reaches people who need to see it. Because what I am showing you is a government system trying to use its most serious punishment for a president who broke the rules. At 4:07 p.m., the president responded. His post on social media said, "The Senate vote is fake and means nothing. I do not accept this decision. I am still President of the United States. I will keep doing my job and I will not leave the White House." That post was written before the vote was finished. He was ready to reject the result before it was even announced. And now the question is whether anyone can force him to follow it. At 4:15 p.m., in a separate place away from the White House, the vice president took the oath of office as president. The new president, whose power under the 25th Amendment had been questioned before, but is now confirmed by the Senate's vote to remove the president, was sworn in by a federal judge. Quote from the oath, "I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully carry out the job of President of the United States. Under the Constitution, when a president is removed, the vice president becomes president. That handover happened, but it happened in a conference room in the Eisenhower Executive Office building next to the White House, not inside the White House itself, because the former president is still in the Oval Office and will not leave. At 4:23 p.m., the new president released a statement. Quote, "The Senate has used its constitutional power. I have taken the oath of office as president. I am asking all government workers and military members to follow the constitutional chain of command. I am asking the former president to respect the Senate's decision and to leave the White House right away." That statement shows that the new president thinks the former president staying in the White House is against the law. Drop a comment right now. Tell me who you think is the president right now, the person the Senate removed who will not leave, or the person who was just sworn in. I'm reading every response because this is the question every government worker and military commander is asking themselves. At 4:34 p.m., Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle sent an emergency order to all Secret Service workers. I have the text. Quote, "Starting right now, protection duties are assigned as follows. The person sworn in as president at 4:15 p.m. is the president and gets full presidential protection. The person removed from office by Senate conviction gets the protection that former presidents receive. All agents are reminded of my testimony to the Senate that we protect the office of the presidency, not any single person. Agents will help carry out the lawful transfer of power." That order does what Cheadle promised in her testimony. The Secret Service is siding with the new president. But at 4:47 p.m., sources inside the White House said that Secret Service agents assigned to the former president's protection team are split. Some agents have left the White House to go join the new president's team. Others have stayed with the former president. The split is not clean, and for the first time in history, Secret Service agents are on opposite sides of a fight about who to protect. Subscribe right now if you have not already, because what I'm about to show you is how the military, government agencies, and foreign countries are reacting to the situation of two people claiming to be president. At 5 p.m., the chairman of the Joint Chiefs sent a message to all military commanders. Quote, "The Senate has convicted and removed the president. Under the Constitution, the vice president becomes president after a removal. The chain of command now goes through the person sworn in at 4:15 p.m. All military members are to follow the constitutional chain of command. Any orders from the person removed from office are not lawful and will not be followed. The military has made its choice. They are following the new president." But at 5:15 p.m., the former president posted again, quote, "The military works for the commander-in-chief. I am the commander-in-chief. The Senate conviction was not legitimate. Any military member who follows orders from the person falsely claiming to be president is committing mutiny and will be court-martialed. That is a direct threat to service members who follow that chairman's order." At 5:34 p.m., the acting attorney general, who was picked by the former president before the 25th Amendment dispute started, announced his resignation. Quote, "I can no longer serve in a position where the question of who really holds executive power is not settled. I resign starting right now." Within an hour, the heads of the FBI, DEA, ATF, and U.S. Marshal Service all announced that they recognized the new president as the lawful leader. The Justice Department has picked a side. At 6:02 p.m., the new president held a short press conference, quote, "I am the President of the United States. The Senate has spoken. The Constitution has been followed. I am asking the former president to leave the White House peacefully. If he does not, I have told the U.S. Marshal Service to help him leave. I do not want this to be handled through force, but the rule of law must be upheld." That is the new president saying the marshals will remove the former president if necessary. At 6:17 p.m., U.S. Marshals arrived at the White House Northwest Gate, the same gate where they were blocked on February 12th. This time, they are not delivering a court order. They are carrying out a presidential order. The new president has ordered the removal of the former president, and the marshals are ready to do it. But at 6:23 p.m., Secret Service agents still assigned to the former president told the marshals that they will not allow them in. The standoff from February 12th is happening again, but now the stakes are higher. The marshals are acting under orders from the person who is constitutionally the president. The Secret Service agents are protecting someone who is, under the Constitution, a former president, but who will not accept that status. Here is what we are watching for over the next 24 hours. 6 signs that will tell us how this ends. Sign 1. Does the former president leave on his own? If he walks out by himself, the crisis calms down. If he locks himself in, it gets worse. Sign 2. Do Secret Service agents at the White House follow Director Cheadle's order and step aside? If they let the marshals in, the removal happens. If they push back, there is a physical face-off between federal law enforcement. Sign 3. Do any military units act on their own if commanders are split on who to listen to? Military unity breaks down. Sign 4. Does Congress take any action to support the new president? If the House and Senate release statements recognizing the new president, it gives him political support. Sign 5. Do foreign countries recognize the new president? If allies make statements, it adds pressure from around the world on the former president to leave. Sign 6. Does the former president's support fall apart when it becomes clear he cannot govern? If cabinet members quit, if agencies refuse his orders, if he loses the ability to function, he may decide that fighting back is pointless. Here are the 3 possible outcomes. Outcome 1. The former president leaves within 24 hours. Facing being alone, with the Secret Service split, with the military refusing his orders, with agencies leaving him, he walks out. He says he is being pushed out unfairly, but he goes along with it to avoid being physically removed. This is the face-saving exit option. Outcome 2, the former president is physically removed. The U.S. Marshals, with Secret Service cooperation after Cheadle's order fully takes effect, enter the White House and walk him out. There is no violence, but the images of a former president being removed by federal agents become the defining moment of the crisis. This is the enforcement option. Outcome 3. The former president successfully resists. Secret Service agents refuse to follow Cheadle. The Marshals cannot get in. The military splits, with some units following the new president and others the former. The government runs with 2 competing leaders. This is government collapse. Subscribe right now. Like this video. Comment with your prediction. Which outcome happens? I am tracking all 3, and as events unfold, you will see the analysis here right away. Let me show you why this has never happened before. The Senate has held 3 presidential impeachment trials before today. Andrew Johnson in 1868 was found not guilty by 1 vote. If he had been convicted, there is no question he would have left office. Bill Clinton in 1999 was found not guilty. Donald Trump in 2020 was found not guilty. Trump in 2021 was found not guilty. In none of those cases was there a conviction, and in none of those cases did anyone suggest the president would refuse to accept the result. Today, for the first time, the Senate convicted. 68 senators voted guilty. The president is removed under the Constitution, but he will not accept it. And the country faces the question of how to carry out a removal when the removed president has enough support and enough resources to fight back. What I know for certain right now, the Senate voted 68 to 32 to convict. 17 Republicans joined all Democrats. Chief Justice Roberts declared the president removed. The vice president was sworn in as president. The former president will not accept being removed and is still in the White House. The Secret Service is split. The military has chosen the new president. The Justice Department has chosen the new president. U.S. Marshals are at the White House gate trying to carry out a removal order, and Secret Service agents are blocking them. This is the government crisis reaching its highest point. The system worked, the Senate convicted, but the ability to enforce it is being tested. If the former president can stay in the White House despite Senate conviction, despite someone new being sworn in, and despite federal law enforcement trying to remove him, then Senate conviction means nothing. The impeachment power is written in the Constitution, but it cannot be enforced against a president who simply says no. The next 24 hours will show whether the United States is still a country where constitutional processes can control executive power, or whether we have learned that power, once taken and held with enough determination, cannot be taken away by votes or procedures, or even by 2/3 of the Senate saying removed. What happens at the White House gate tonight and tomorrow will answer that question. And that answer will define what kind of country we are. Stay here. Turn on notifications. When the standoff ends, when the former president leaves, or is removed, or successfully resists, you will see the analysis here right away. This is not over. This is the Senate using the most serious constitutional remedy, and a former president saying that remedy does not apply to him. One of those 2 positions will win, and which one does will determine whether American democracy survived its greatest test since the Civil War.